I worked as a dispatcher at a rather small ambulance station near a pretty big city in the middle of the US. I'm not sure how specific I can be, since this is a real story, and I'm going to tell you one of the craziest stories I heard from this job. We had a patient we'll call Susan, a dialysis patient, and one of the services we provided was to transport very sick or disabled patients to and from their dialysis appointments. She lived with her son, whom we'll call David. Her son was in his late 40s, and Susan was in her late 70s. Like clockwork, a unit would pick Susan up and drop her off 3 times a week for her dialysis treatment. Everyone at the station knew her because we'd been doing this with Susan for a long time. We all knew her and her son, whether it was the team who saw and cared for her in person, or someone like me who often spoke to her or her son on the phone about appointments. Everyone knew her. Naturally, when the teams got any news about her health, they would provide feedback to keep everyone informed about her condition. At one point, she wasn't feeling well. However, she wanted to attend her dialysis appointment, so we naturally agreed and picked her up. During her treatment, she lost consciousness, and our team took her to the hospital right away. When the time came for her next dialysis appointment, we called the hospital to find out if she'd been discharged and was able to attend. The hospital staff told us she'd likely be discharged the following day and was undergoing dialysis treatment at the hospital. Then, the next treatment time came around, and we called the hospital again, and they told us she'd been discharged the previous day. This was great news, but it felt a bit strange, since we were always the first ones she'd call to take her to any hospital or appointment, and we hadn't taken her anywhere. But we acted immediately and called her son, David, asking if she would need us for her treatment that day. He told us she wasn't feeling well and wasn't up for it, but he was thinking of taking her back to the hospital. We told him to call us if he needed anything, and that we'd cancel her trip that day until further notice. He never called us. The next appointment came, and we called David again to ask if she was going, and he said she was sick again and back in the hospital. It was strange again, because we hadn't taken her, but her health didn't seem to be in the best shape. The same thing happened at the next appointment. We called David, and he said his mother was at the hospital, so we continued. Now things started to shift a bit. When the next appointment came, we tried calling David to check on his mother's condition, but he never answered or returned our calls. So, since we had a contract with Susan and were required to take her to these appointments, unless told otherwise, we sent a crew to pick her up for treatment. When the crew arrived, they knocked on the door, but received no response. They knocked again and were greeted by David smoking a cigarette. David seemed surprised, and the crew told him they were there to pick up Susan for her appointment. David said he'd forgotten to call, but that Susan was still in the hospital and not feeling well. The team offered their best wishes, and David closed the door. Door closes. However, the crew felt something was off. They immediately radioed in to report something was wrong and asked us to call the hospital that David had mentioned to see if she was still there. There was no record of her being there since we last knew, so we had the crew leave the scene and requested a welfare check at Susan's son's house. We didn't hear anything back for the rest of the day from the police, David, Susan, or anyone else involved. The next morning when I arrived at work, the first call I received started with, "This is Sheriff Thule from calling to give you an update on the welfare check you requested yesterday." I was nervous since they sounded concerned, and I hadn't expected them to actually call us back with any news. When they arrived at the house, they spoke with David, who insisted his mother was not feeling well, but had come home from the hospital. The police said they only wanted to check on Susan and make sure she was okay, and eventually, David allowed them inside. When they entered the house, they encountered a grim scene. I think they smelled it first. The officers went on to explain that they observed Susan's lifeless body wrapped in blankets on the couch, as though she were watching TV, but she had been dead for a while, about 2 weeks. When they spoke with David, they learned he had been regularly changing her clothes and watching TV with her. He was clearly suffering from some sort of mental issues and grief, but the thing is, he hadn't really taken care of her until she passed away. I've been a courier for almost 7 years, seen my share of weird stuff. People answering the door naked, dogs that try to eat the scanner, apartments that smell like straight-up death. Nothing prepared me for this one. It was a nothing special Thursday. One package left on the route, medium box, handwritten label that just said A, Demir, and the building address. No apartment number. GPS dropped me at this tired 6-story walk-up on the edge of the city. Peeling paint, busted intercom, the kind of place that used to be middle class in the 70s, and now just looks embarrassed. Main door was unlocked. That should have been red flag number 1. I didn't care. I just wanted to finish the shift. Stairwell smelled wrong right away. Damp cardboard mixed with something sweet and bodily, like milk left out for days. I took the stairs to the 4th floor, knocked on 4B. Nothing. Knocked harder. A soft rustle inside, like someone shifting plastic bags. Then the chain slid out of its slot by itself. The door eased open 2 inches and stopped against the box I'd just set down. Delivery for A. Demir, I said to the gap. Silence. No hand, no voice. Just that rustling again, closer. I nudged the box inside with my boot and pushed the door wider. Habit. The living room hit me like a slap. Hundreds of opened packages. Amazon, Trendyol, random overseas sites, ripped apart. Contents dumped everywhere. Bubble wrap, receipts, those little silica packets. And mixed in with it all, dirty clothes, used socks, stained underwear, sweaty t-shirts, thrown around like someone had been trying them on straight out of strangers' parcels. The smell was thick now, warm, sour skin, and wet fabric. Not quite rot. Worse, somehow. Like the clothes had been worn after they were delivered. I pulled my hand to my mouth, about to throw up. How could a person live in a place like this? Kitchen was straight ahead. A slow, deliberate drip. Sink completely clogged, overflowing with dark green sludge. Mold so thick it looked furry. Plates, cups, a frying pan half submerged, everything coated. Water seeping from underneath, feeding it. That was the sound. Drops hitting the surface like a slow heartbeat. That's when I saw the footprints. Bare feet, wet. Greenish smears across the cardboard sea, going from the kitchen into the living room, stopping halfway, then turning around and going back. Same path, over and over, dozens of trips. The prints got fainter each time, like whatever made them was slowly drying out. The air behind me shifted. Not wind, just that subtle pressure, the way it changes when someone steps into the room. I spun around. Nothing. Just the swinging bulb and the clothes and the open boxes. I backed out fast, grabbed my phone, took the proof of delivery photo on pure autopilot. Only later, at home, did I zoom in on the picture. In the reflection of a crooked picture frame on the wall, there's a tall, blurred shape standing right behind where I'd been. Same gray sweatpants that were lying crumpled on the floor. I left the box inside, pulled the door shut, and walked down those 4 flights. Didn't run. Walking felt safer for some reason. Marked it, left it door. Never accepted another job to that building. The app still pings me sometimes, late at night, Same handwritten name. New tracking number. I always hit decline. It was the quietest and most terrifying delivery I've ever made. No force could ever get me back into that building. I honestly don't even know where to start with this, but I guess I have to. I work the night shift at a secure document destruction plant. Been doing it 3 years now. The place is this big windowless concrete box out on the far edge of the industrial park, about the size of a supermarket. After 11 p.m., it's just me, the conveyor belt, and 2 giant industrial shredders that sound like jet engines with a smoker's cough. I actually like the noise. Keeps everything else quiet. Last Tuesday, a truck rolled in 40 minutes late. No manifest, no barcode sheet, nothing. Just 6 pallets wrapped in black plastic and a single handwritten tag taped to the first one. Rush, destroy immediately. Whatever. Extra pallets mean extra pay, so I signed for it. Started feeding boxes around midnight. First one was heavier than regular office trash. When I cut the tape, a whole stack of papers slid out. Dialysis schedules, ambulance transport forms, patient consent sheets, everything filled out in the same neat handwriting. The ink was smeared in places, like the pages had been damp for a long time. The smell that came up was faint, but familiar. Warm skin, wet cotton, something sweet starting to turn. I kept going. 3rd pallet in, the main shredder coughed and locked up. Hit the big red stop button, opened the service hatch. One adult diaper had wrapped itself around the cutter drum like a damn tourniquet. Still heavy, still warm. I fished it out with the grab stick and dropped it in the burn bin. Every pallet after that was the same deal, only worse. More medical forms, more damp paper, a handful of Polaroids mixed in, cheap prints of a dim apartment living room, cardboard everywhere, opened packages, dirty clothes on the floor, kitchen sink full of dark green sludge. I'd never been inside that place, but I knew the layout. Saw those exact photos years ago on some courier message board. Guy posted them, then deleted the thread the same day. By 4 a.m., I was on the last pallet. The belt was slick under my gloves. Fed the final box and watched the blades chew. The machine sounded different on that one. Lower, wetter, like it was working harder than it should. Day shift showed up at 5:17. I was hosing down the floor when the supervisor waved me over to the baler. One sheet had come through the shredders completely untouched. It was sitting on the sorting table under the work lamp, bone dry, edges perfectly square. My time card for next week, already filled out in that same neat handwriting. Every shift scheduled, every break noted, my signature forged at the bottom. Date in the corner was 6 days from now. I stared at it long enough for the supervisor to ask if I was okay. Told him I felt sick and clocked out early. That afternoon, I handed in my 2-week notice. They still text me occasionally about open shifts. I send them straight to voicemail. Sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep, I can still hear that low sound the shredder made hitting the last box. These days, I'm seriously thinking about quitting.